Well, yeah, thank you for everyone tuning in at this time. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who are tuning in for the 12th episode of Web3 Social Club. Yeah, and then yeah, GM to our speakers today, Evin and Yisi. Welcome. Yeah,
GM, everybody. Thank you so much for having us
yeah,
today.
great to have you. Awesome. Yeah, I think we can get started. Yeah, thank you for joining Web3 Social Club. My name is Hannah. I will be your host today. I lead growth at Mask Network. So, for those of you guys that are tuning in for the first time through other channels, Mask Network is a social infrastructure project that bridges Web2 and Web3 in a mission to build an open internet and giving data ownership back to the users. Quickly overview on the products that we built. First of all, we have a browser extension and mobile application that essentially integrates Web3 dApps and social media feeds seamlessly with traditional social media like Twitter. And our applications are built on top of a decentralized open source DID protocol called Next.ID, where identities across Web2 and Web3 can be connected through the protocol. And we're also opening this up for more Web3 protocols and dApps to build upon. So today, Yisi is the coordinate initiator of Next.ID. Yeah, and I think in a way we don't talk about identity and why it matters to both the builders, developers in the space, and users enough. But sometimes we also just talk about like did as in a standalone concept without the kind of the broader implication extension of its use cases, etc. So today we have the top builders in the space, Evin, the CEO of Disco.xyz, and Yisi, the core initiator of Next.ID, for us to have a really, hopefully, a deep dive and meaningful conversation around decentralized identity, its growing use cases, how both developers, as we're welcoming East Denver in a week, as well as the general users, many of which are here today, are reacting to it. Like, how can we onboard more users to adopt this concept, and what will be some of the front end applications to it? And I'm also very excited to hear more about the different product approaches and insights both Evin and Isa have found while building Disco and Next.ID. Yeah, so welcome, Evin and Isa, again for joining us.
Yeah, hey, let's get this party started,
Yeah,
Hannah. Thanks so
yeah,
much.
Oh yeah,
awesome.
good morning, guys. Yep.
Yeah, great. Yeah, let's get started. Maybe Evan and Isa, you can also briefly introduce yourself and tell us more about what Disco and Next.ID do.
Alrighty. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yisi, and then I'm the co-founder and CTO at Mass Network. And last year, we decided to work on this like new project called like Next.ID, which is actually on the core identity protocol that's working behind Mass Network, a browser extension. So I think we will have like more time to talk about what Next.ID is, and then how it works later. So I'll just pass the mic to Evan.
GM, thank you so much. I am really excited to be here with all of you today, and very stoked to welcome you into a shared vision of Web3 and our connected future together. So I want you first to imagine yourself a year from now. You have just received an invitation to a disco at the Louvre Museum in Paris, and the only thing you're going to bring with you when you get off of your couch at home is your disco data backpack. So that means you're going to move seamlessly through the doors of your building, your ride share, airport security, border screenings, health screenings, all the way to the door of the event and the VIP room where you're being served your favorite snacks and drinks without even having to ask. Because at Disco, our definition of the metaverse is your ability to show up in any digital or physical environment and receive a personalized experience based on the parts of yourself that you choose to share. So this means that we are introducing the ideas of consent, self-curation, and private verifiable data to the Web3 ecosystem so that we can carry information about ourselves beyond just our financial assets from one app to another, from physical space to digital space, using our identities, the data that describes us, our accomplishments and preferences, to customize the environments that we hang out in, both online and IRL. So at Disco, I've mentioned, we are the purveyors of fine data backpacks. So you probably are familiar with Web3 wallets that allow us to use, public-private key pairs to own and control public financial data, like fungible and non-fungible tokens. But our data backpacks are web apps that allow us to use those very same keys to own and control information that's not appropriate for a public chain. Things like our memberships in communities, our accomplishments, learning and education credentials, our participation in governance, our personal preferences, preferred pronouns, favorite color, and even zodiac sign. So, really looking forward to today's conversation about how we can coordinate around more than public financial assets alone.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Evan and Yisi, for your introduction. Definitely, I think what's really exciting for me personally is be able to have a more comprehensive and just like non-financial like information and credentials by myself that's portable across both the digital world and excited to hear how it like kind of also translate into the physical world. So yeah, we'll do definitely more deep dive around that. Before also we get started, quick shout out to Disco. So today, Seven said about issuing verifiable credentials to both speakers and participants. So we encourage all of you to also ask questions and join the mic towards the end of our space. For this for audience who have raised your hand and asked questions today, we'll make note of that of your Twitter handle, your wallet address, and then also issue you like a GM or yeah like a special credential for participating actively in today's discussion. Same with our speakers here. So I'm personally excited to get something dropped on my data backpack. Great. So to get us started, I'm curious about kind of the genesis of your building story, like how you identify, like uh, identify the problem, like and then start building out a solution like Disco and Next.ID in the space, and why you started decide to focus on this particular issue area. Could you guys share a little bit more about like specific problems, like the broader problems that you've seen, and a specific angle that you've decided to choose to build your product?
For sure. I'm happy to kick that off. So, in the United States, people spend 11.5 billion hours every year filling out forms. And if you have ever been to a crypto conference week before, you probably feel like you've spent 11.5 billion hours filling out event RSVPs, Eventbrite, invitations, ticket forms, etc. So right now, the only data that we can carry with us from DApp to DApp and Web3 is our public financial information, our tokens, what's in our wallet. But of course, we need a whole lot more information to inform an app experience. If we think about our experiences in apps like Instagram or Shopify, Google, they're collecting a whole lot more data in order to form a personalized experience around us, largely in the form of things like, cookies and sort of the centralized extraction of data. But my interest in identity and our ability to move seamlessly from one place to another long precedes that. When I was a little kid, I grew up watching a television show called The Jetsons about a family that lived in the future and could move seamlessly from one environment through another, from their home to their school, through their spaceships and back. And it is that vision of a seamless future, one where we don't spend a lot of time filling out forms and waiting in lines, that I continue to build toward today. So throughout my career, I've worked on connected devices, things like connected mirrors, even toothbrushes and autonomous vehicles. But throughout those design practices, I realized that very rarely was the human being put at the center of creating value and ensuring that we had an awesome experience. Often the extraction of data was more important or equally important to creating an awesome experience for human beings. And so that's why at Disco, we are re architecting the internet around you, around the atomic individuals who can become self sovereign with our key pairs, but who need more than just financial data to interact with one another across all the activities that we do every day as people.
Oh wow, thanks for sharing your experience. Because like, I think we kind of like started from different like backgrounds, where different like reasons for starting a project that's focusing on identity. So at like Next.ID or before Next.ID, we started like Mass Network like 4 years ago. Uh, at that time, the reason why we started this project is like we saw the problem with those like centralized platforms. They have been abusing our data, like Facebook, like all the other giant platforms. They have been using our data. They have been using our privacy for making money for themselves. So we were thinking, hey, can we just utilize some like cryptography or some computer science algorithms to help user finally take control over their data, their privacy? But before taking control of the data, we should definitely just think about where is like these data like stored, and then where is these data attached to. So the answer is pretty simple. It's identity. So we saw the problem with the centralized identities over those like giant platforms, because our accounts on those platforms are not just they're not ours. They're just data entries in their databases. We sign up to those like platforms, but we never get the control or the ownership over them. So we're thinking, can we just enable users to have their own like identity, like on their on their behalf. A cryptographic identity just came up. So we were thinking, can we just like enable users to finally manage their identities or cryptographic identities in a really easy way while they're browsing the internet. So there we go. We had the mesh network where you can have your like key pair on a elliptic curve as your identity, as your like universal identity in the cyberspace, and then on everything, every sentence, every post you created can be encrypted by your like a key pair, and then you have the control over that. You can decide who can see that and who cannot. So that's why we started this project, and then later on we decided to abstract this data structure or this like identity protocol as a standalone project to benefit more users and more developers. So that's a little bit background of ourselves. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Evan and Yisi. By the way, for folks, if you have questions and also questions, feel free to leave it in the comment box so we can see them as they come through, and then see if it's relevant to ask like respond to those during our space. Yeah, and thank you for the context. And then I'm curious, like now, like I know Disco has been operating and like with private beta and a lot of testing for over a year by now, and then Next.ID is also marching close to like a year since its creation. I'm curious, like, how do you see like how's like actual like decentralized identity like implemented in your product, and then can you walk us also through like give people an idea of like how your current product is designed, like what will be the developer experience, user experience using Disco and Next.ID?
So Hannah, I really appreciate the great energy that but actually, we've only been in private beta for a few months,
Oh,
and
really?
so our yeah. So although we're really excited about our work and are so glad that it has reached the community and that people feel that we've been around for a long time. Actually, we're pretty new.
Nice. Okay. I
So
definitely heard about you guys like I think March February last year, like at East Denver, right?
Oh my gosh.
Um
So that is
yes.
so wonderful, Hannah, because that was the moment when we introduced the disco to the
Yes.
world. And
Yeah.
so you have been there since our very first inception of this conversation. So I'm
Yeah.
so thankful and grateful that we're able to continue it here together because you've been on this
Hmm.
journey with us the whole way. And so if you remember that talk from East Denver, if you've had an opportunity to check it
Hmm.
out, it's only 11 minutes. So I highly recommend. You can find it on the Ethereum Foundation website. Um, what we envision for Disco is a bring your own keys experience. So we can help all those who hang out in the EVM ecosystem already, who already feel comfortable managing their public-private key pairs, to extend the capabilities of what you can do. So basically, giving new superpowers to the wallet you already have. So today, if you want to join our private beta, just check out the pinned tweet at Disco.xyz on our Twitter. And you too can visit app.disco.xyz, connect your Web3 EVM wallet with one click as you would normally a regular decentralized application, and you can get right to work filling up your data backpack with self-attestations, things that you say about yourself, and credentials that you receive from others, statements that others write about you. So these credentials can include things like your personal preferences, your metaverse presets, your preference for light or dark mode, a primary language, your pronouns, or even your t-shirt size. And then additionally, you're also able to receive credentials from your favorite organizations where you're a member, receive credentials of your roles, or even accolades from your teammates, such as sort of kudos or snaps, vouches to attest to your trustworthiness or the fact that you're an awesome person to work with. So every single week, we are incorporating new kinds of credentials as well as onboarding new communities daily so that they can use their data backpacks and the private data that they own inside of those backpacks in the same way that they do their tokens, carrying them from app to app to receive access to different experiences and content based on their qualifications. So today, you can use your data backpack for access control to Google collaboration tools, GitHub repositories, smart contracts on EVM chains, Shopify discounts, chat channels on Telegram and Discord, and more. And so our objective is to unlock the simplicity and ease of use that we enjoy with Web3 dApps based on our tokens, but using any kind of data so that we are not just restricted to our financial expression with our keys, but we can express our whole selves.
Oh wow! Because I don't know. Yeah, I really like the idea of like data backpack. I didn't get a chance to come to December last year, but I watched the video on YouTube, and then yeah. By the way, it's really great like video. So I would highly recommend everybody to watch it. It's
Yes,
so good. Um,
love it.
so I think like you guys have been like focusing on those like in real life IRL data that cannot be structured easily on like in any like data structures. I'm somehow curious. Sorry, I think I wasn't supposed to ask questions, but I'm
Oh no, you can do whatever you want.
oh yeah, it's like
There's no
Yeah.
rules, police. This is a free-form dance
oh
floor.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That
know.
is
We're discoing at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I know it's getting late East for you, so feel free to party on.
Oh yeah. Alrighty. So yeah, I'm kind of like curious, like yeah, how much energy do you guys like put in like those like in real life data versus like the data that's generated like on the internet or like in the cyberspace? So do you guys like prefer like more towards like those unstructured data, or like you guys think these like two data are kind of like same like important? But you guys are just focusing on just one at a time.
So I think that, like a disco ball, you as an individual are the multifaceted center of the party, and you should reflect your data and your identity to the world however you decide. This means that, in the words of the character Tyler Durden in the movie Fight Club, you are more than the contents of your wallet. As a human being, you are more than the financial assets that you own. You are your experiences, your accomplishments, and your preferences, and more. And so we see data that is public and on chain as a really great way to store information that requires global public availability, to have everyone on earth and in space with an internet connection for all time to be able to access it. But you can't have a lot of fun if that's the only kind of data that you have, right? We can't play games if everybody is able to see one another's cards. We cannot enjoy selective disclosure, minimum disclosure, having our data, known to others on a need to know basis if that's how we're expressing ourselves. Indeed, if we are publicizing the data that is used to marginalize people, how can we create a more equitable world in Web3? And so at Disco, we seek to complement the existing data types that we can already enjoy on public blockchains by extending the ability of our keys to handle all kinds of data so that we can play all kinds of coordination games, not just trust minimized group chat with bank account and OpenSea collection management, which are, I think, some of the activities that certainly the folks on this call are probably pretty familiar with. So, we think about the scaling of importance of data, being able to handle more and more consequential kinds of data, kind of like the way that we learn how to drive cars. So when we're little kids, we learn how to cross the street safely, to look both ways and maybe look for a street light. And then as we get older, we take driving classes, we watch videos, we take lessons, and then we take an exam to make sure that we are appropriately prepared to drive safely. And then if we want to drive something like a truck, you've got to take further training to make sure you're able to do so responsibly. And that's kind of how we think about handling your data. That first, we should start by feeling more comfortable learning how to handle different kinds of data, not just our on-chain public assets. And then we start off with, more sort of fun, delightful, useful forms of data where if we make those, pieces of data public, we're learning about what it means to have private and public data, but we're not necessarily going to harm ourselves right off the bat as we're learning to handle these new data types. And so at Disco, we will continuously escalate. And every sprint, we sort of escalate our capability to handle more and more consequential kinds of data, but we make sure that the user experience guidance around how that data is public and private, how you're handling it, is very informative. Because we need to gently and progressively prepare people for the responsibility of handling their own data, which can be kind of scary. Not everybody wants that level of intense responsibility.
Yeah.
And so being able to offer convenience and simplicity alongside confidence and trust is something that's really important for our design process.
Right. Like I totally agree with that because at the time we're like designing this protocol, we have been thinking like we're I've been talking to the others like how important to keep your because like you will need to know this is your identity, and then whatever you're doing or whatever you have done with your identity, it was like is permanent, especially if you're on the internet because like I've been telling people like this like once public forever public because like you cannot assume you should definitely always like assume the data you generated on the internet can be like picked up by anybody on the internet. So you should definitely just pay attention to what do you have set to public, and this is some kind of like educational thing that we have been like telling the users, but like most of the users don't really understand why this is important, because like they saw a lot of like promotions saying if you just like give up or some of your privacies, and then you will have some like, benefits or tokens airdrops to your wallet, but they never knew like what is the potential risk of like exposing some of their like identities or some of their like sensitive and but private data to the public. So this is one thing, and the other is on I totally agree with you on the topic of like we should definitely just separate the financial assets and the social capitals, because like financial assets are just like your credit cards or debit cards or bank accounts, but in real life or in the society, you are you, not just defined by your financial status or how much money you have or how much assets you own. It's more like how you behave, like because like there's a like concept called like social identity, which means like you are defined not just by your name or anything that's put on your like identification card. You're you, like, or you're defined by how you behave in different contexts. So this is why we called our like identity persona, or but yeah we rebranded persona into like avatar. But yeah, anyways, so our idea is that you are you, and you are defined by how your appearance in different contexts. which is more like how you post on different like social medias. You can have like different accounts for different like social contexts, and then this is the kind of the freedom you should have in the cyberspace. You should not like you should not be defined by the others. You should not be defined by those platforms. So in our protocol in Next.ID, this is kind of the freedom we want to get back to the users. And we will also need our users to know that for now maybe you think this kind of like financial assets are super important because maybe this is the only thing that you see in Web3, because like most of the times you hear people just talk about like tokens, how much money you made from like NFT or from other ERC20 tokens, but you never like pay attention to your social capitals, which is probably just for example your like social reputation or social credit in the cyberspace. But later on, once all the infrastructures are built up in Web3, I believe that your social capital will be like kind of like more important, or at least like equally important as your financial assets. This is more like your like social status, not just defined by how much money you have. It's more like how much like your reputation or how much credit you have like gained from different perspectives and from different like sources, while you are just behaving as you in this like I don't know new Web3 world. So yeah, this is something that I want to add up to Evan's answer. So yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
I think you make a really great point here that that not only do we have the ability to separate non-transferable capital from transferable capital. So social capital is the reputation we can accrue based on our actions, our accomplishments, what we know, and what we can do. And when we accrue social capital, when we make friends, we can't sell those friends based on trading away digital assets and
Yeah.
suddenly have them be friends with other people. And so we have this access of non-transferable achievements and capital that we can use, and when we capture it in the form of a credential, that can interact with smart contracts in the same way that our tokens can. But just wanted to highlight one other axis that we can think about here, which is consensual versus non-consensual. So on-chain tokens, attestations, and content is, encompasses what anyone in that chain ecosystem can say about you. And it really doesn't matter whether or not you agree. So, for example, if you were to look in your wallet on OpenSea, you might see a lot of tokens that you didn't acquire yourself. These are assets that other people have sent to you
Yeah.
without your participation, but they are still being reflected alongside your name and your wallet address, whether you like it or not. Whereas when it comes to your data backpack, your off chain data, you can collect the very best of yourself, what anyone says about you from any chain ecosystem, Web 2 or Web 3, and you can decide what parts of yourself you want to share and put together and present. So on-chain data is what anyone from that chain ecosystem can say about you, and your data backpack is the very best of what anyone from any ecosystem has said about you.
Absolutely great. Yeah, thank you, Evan. That was very well said. Totally agree. I get so bothered. I have to like go to my OpenSea from time to time just to check if I get airdropped some random NFT. I know they're doing a better job at like hiding some of the unidentified ones, but then the classification right now is still, I think, a bit too preliminary. But yeah, I agree on the kind of the consensual and non-consensual issuance, and also like how they're growing like more and more contexts around our activities in Web3. Like it's no longer just financial transactions and people's interactions. Goes beyond. It's a lot more nuanced compared to I think the early days. So I think that's where like a lot of the credential issuing plays a big role in terms of foster trust and then also foster this type of camaraderie in a decentralized format. and in like the DAO governance, where like other types of decentralized organizations, I think this could be really, really valuable. I think that like segues into my next question. I think, Evin, you've touched upon a little bit in terms of use cases. There's like Shopify and then the kind of the traditional like Web2 platforms that we've heard about, and then also like you talked about like DAO governance. I think in some more recent tweets. We'd love to understand, like in the few months of private beta that you guys have run and onboarded all these communities, what are some of the interesting use cases that people are currently using Disco today, and things that you think could have a really interesting potential expansion moving forward. And same thing with Yisi, because I know for Next.ID, it's a lot more like kind of a infrastructure layer. Like there's it works with like a lot of other applications in terms of like enabling like ID verification, authentication, identity graph. So what are some of the use cases you currently see as a strictly developer facing protocol at this stage? Maybe Evin, you can kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the wonderful things that we've learned from our early community partners is that Disco membership credentials can help shortcut onboarding. So the time that it takes for you to be welcomed into a community. So you can use one credential to access the calendar, the collaboration documents, the GitHub repos, privileged NFT mints, getting access to one of your branded hats from the Shopify store. So all kinds of different access controls able to be achieved in a decentralized way right off the bat. So that's been one thing that's been really wonderful for us to see come to fruition thus far. Now, when it comes to other kinds of data and other kinds of interactions, we are particularly excited to see off-chain data start to inform more and more consequential kinds of engagement to lower the switching costs for moving from one community to another, because you can bring your reputation with you. So in addition to our Bring Your Own Keys web app, Disco also supports an API and SDK to make it really easy for any community to create new kinds of credentials and issue them to their squad, and for any application to easily call the data backpack of a user who comes to their front door and to incorporate more personalized data into their experience. And so we are jump-starting a three-sided marketplace where we need folks to issue credentials to one another, whether they're organizations or individuals. We need owners of data backpacks to take custody of their data and carry it with them to other apps. And we need verifiers, third-party applications, to rely on that data and shortcut the onboarding experience to a more personalized adventure. And so in spinning up this three-sided marketplace, we've also noticed that, to your point about DAOs, there's a ton of demand for us to move beyond token-weighted plutocracy as the method of governing our communities in Web3. So right now, most DAO communities base voting on who owns the most tokens. And a lot of those tokens you can buy. And so often the person who has the most money is able to influence how that project is going to move forward. But instead, earlier we were talking in this conversation about social capital, the importance of using our expertise, our contributions, and participation to weight how our opinion is, informing the communities we're part of. And so I'm really excited about the plugin that we're building with Snapshot to allow communities to weight voting based on people's role, based on the number of Twitter spaces just like this they've come to, based on the number of events they've participated in, and other kinds of non-financial work that they have done, such as writing newsletters, consuming content, or participating in town hall meetings. And so what we're doing is extending the different kinds of data, the different kinds of weight we can bring to our governance conversations, so that we can help to bring the voices that are very well informed and participate in the community to the forefront, as well as having the ability to bring those with a lot of tokens to the forefront, which we can already do today.
I guess like we were kind of like on different tracks on getting users and then getting like like use cases. So we have been like working on so a little bit like about Next.ID. So Next.ID has been working on some protocols that allows users to. So one of our services is like you have everybody should have their own like cryptographic like identity, which is just as simple as a key pair on a elliptic curve, which is the curve we use is SEP256K1, which is the Bitcoin curve that's used in like Bitcoin and Ethereum and other like major blockchains. So we regard this like kind of like identity or key pair as the main key or the major key that represents users. It's not used on any blockchain. It's the sole use case of that is just to sign. So it signs to verify the identity of the users themselves. So we enables users to use their like to use this key to like connect with his or hers her different identities both on Web3 and the Web2. So for Web3 identities, which is usually regarded as wallet addresses, all you need to do just to sign sign each other on a bidirectional fashion, so that you prove that you have the ownership of both your identity, both this uh, avatar and your like maybe some like wallet addresses on Ethereum or other blockchains. But for like Web2 accounts, if you want to connect with them, you can definitely use your avatar as the cryptographic key pair we use in Next.ID. You use this like a private key to sign your like Web2 account like username or handle. But you will also need to prove that you have the ownership of this like Web2 account. So you would have to do something that only the owner of that can do, which is usually post something on behalf of that account. So basically, if you want to connect your avatar with your like Twitter account, all you need to do just create a proof post. So in this way, we can enable users to connect with use like this avatar to connect with both like their like Web2 and the Web3 accounts to form an identity graph. So by using this identity graph, you can just bring this like kind of like identity aggregated identity together with you to like have a better like enable you the others to have a better understanding of you yourself. So for example, if you're or someone is trying to send some tokens to you, but all they know is your like wallet address. But with our identity graph, by like querying this like wallet address, you will also be able to know like what other like accounts does like a wallet address have. So for example, this wallet address is associated with like this like a Twitter account, and then this like Facebook account or like a GitHub account, and then everything that's adding up to this identity should add some like a value or to add some like credit to this wallet address, so that you have the total confidence to send tokens to this guy, like more like reputation aggregation. So we have been uh, experimenting with this kind of technology was like a bit different kind of different projects. For example, we're cooperating with like Clubland, so that like Clubland users can just sign their Discord or other social media accounts once with their like wallet addresses, and then they can just bring this kind of information or identity graph with them to verify or authenticate their identities in different Discord servers. And then on also we are also enabling users to not just publicly connect with their accounts, but they can also like privately connect with some handles or accounts by encrypting all of these data with their like avatar's private key. So in this way, we think it's better for users to have this kind of like more comprehensive identity graph with them to better express who they are in this like cyberspace. So yeah, this is kind of the a use case we have been experimenting with, And then I think we can just add more details later in this space.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Edwin and Yisi, for sharing on this note. I think it sounds like so for Disco, really like this is like a very like direct like user facing like interface. Really like the UI on the private beta. It just everything looks so fun and like pop in and you can bring your data backpack. From one application to another, and then for Next.ID, sounds like it's really kind of like the backbone to support a lot of other consumer facing like dApps for like identity like kind of verification identity graph like with Collabland and maybe a few others going down the road. Quick thing on like I think we talked about like kind of key management and then like allowing users like educating users on importance of like self custodial like kind of managing their data on their own and both the benefits and the risk of it. Could you elaborate a bit more, Evan and Lisa, in terms of right now for the key management or on that note, like what are how are users like interfacing with that? Like, do they need to like have like memorize store their own like private key for Disco, or like is it more like just on like Ethereum wallet and then they have a Disco passport, like a data backpack that then they can bring around? Same thing with Next.ID.
So today, Disco is a bring your own EVM keys web app, which means
Gotcha.
that you don't need to remember anything additional, anything extra. You don't have to worry about another set of permissions or private keys that you need to handle when you use Disco if you already have an EVM wallet. This is because we take advantage of some new superpowers that we got a couple Novembers ago from EIP, Ethereum Improvement Proposal 712. And so this basically allows us to extend the capabilities of our existing key pairs to use
Mhm.
them, let's say MetaMask wallet that we already have, to sign, issue, request, disclose, and manage private data in our data backpacks. Now, of course, we recognize that not everybody is ready to manage their own EVM compatible private keys from day zero. And so that's why we are building out custodial data backpacks. So later on this year, we'll be able to serve folks who are not yet ready to manage their own private keys. And they'll be able to sign up with a username, password, and phone number. And then when they're ready, they can take the training wheels off. They can kick Disco off that multi-sig type data backpack experience. And then they can take custody of their own keys and ride off into the sunset in a non custodial way. We're particularly excited to be working with a number of cryptographic homies out there in the Web3 ecosystem, assisting us to build out the experience of a personal multi-sig. So how you can create basically multiple key pairs tied together, almost like a little key ring, so that you can let yourself back in if you get locked out of your own data backpack or your own Ethereum compatible wallet. So this capability, the ability to recover one's own keys or to rotate off a wallet that no longer serves us, will add flexibility to the way that we're locked in to public-private key pairs today. So right now, if you have an Ethereum compatible key pair and something like MetaMask, you cannot rotate the keys that sit behind that public identifier. But one of the superpowers of data backpacks, decentralized identifiers, is that we can keep our public address intact while rotating the keys behind it if they get compromised, if we lose them, or if we just want new ones for regular OPSEC. So we're really excited about adding in the flexibility and sort of self-directed experiences of centralized applications without all of the sort of centralized concentration risk. However, because we need to really prioritize UX, at Disco, we think a lot about a progressive user experience, progressive decentralization. How can we optimize for the best possible experience and then decentralize under the hood as we go?
So basically, as I mentioned before, we use like SEP256K1, which is the Bitcoin curve, as our like main avatars like curve. So basically, all the like Ethereum or EVM compatible wallets can support like managing all your identities. So users don't really have to do any extra step to manage their like Next.ID on identity graph. But the thing is, like I think we also mentioned this before. we really wanted to like users to separate their like financial assets with their like social capitals. So ideally, so they should have like one key that's solely for like their avatar, and then this avatar can be connected with their like multiple like wallets on different chains, where like multiple wallets on the same chain. For example, you have like 100 like Ethereum wallets, and each one of them is for different purposes. And then you have like also have like a different wallets on Solana, on Bitcoin, on like Phantom, on like Arbitrum, etc. So ideally you will only have this as like soul or like avatar, but like you are able to connect with all of your like wallets in this way. But we really want to separate the risk that you have by connecting all of these like wallets, because if you like have your like social like your capital along like with your like financial assets in the same wallet, once you lose one once you lose the private key, or expose your private key in some way, you lose both of them. You not just lose your like money, which is super important for now, but maybe now in the future, because like if you lose your like social, or if you lose your identity, you lose the ability to assign everything. And the bad people, the bad parties can use your data, or can use your like identity to do anything that's on behalf of you. So we really want to help user get on board of this like new thinking, that you should definitely just separate your like social identity with your like financial like with your wallet that's storing your financial assets. So this is one thing. We're compatible with like existing like wallets, but we're maybe like one day we will be urging users to like finally separate like your like their like social capitals with their like financial assets. So another thing is like I think like Evan also mentioned, we will also like support users to recover their private keys or recover their avatars, but we're doing that in a really kind of like a weird, like not that intuitive way. So since you have the ability to connect with your like identities or like your accounts, both in like Web3 and the Web2. So if you lose your like the private key to your avatar, you will be able to not to recover the private key to this, because we no one can do that, but instead you can replace your avatar with a new one by proving that you have the ownership of like the count that's in that has like exceeded some threshold. Say you have like connected with like five different accounts on different platforms. So all you need to do just to prove that you have the ownership of like three of them, to replace a new avatar to that. So, but everything will be done in a like wallet for now, and users shouldn't have any extra, take any extra step for doing this. Yep.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Evan and Lisa, for the clarification on this. Quick thing, Evan, in terms of like outside of the EVM compatible like chains and also like Ethereum wallets, are you guys thinking about branching out beyond that? Is that on the roadmap?
Absolutely. That is mission critical.
Hmm.
So, as human beings, we are not bound to a single chain.
Yeah.
I do not wake up in the morning and say, I can only interact with apps and services that are EVM compatible. Because if that was the case, I couldn't order coffee, I couldn't drive my car, I couldn't coordinate with my friends to decide what we're going to do later this afternoon, I couldn't rent an apartment. Of course, as human beings, we use apps based on all different kinds of protocols. And often we don't even talk about what those protocols are. So, for example, we've been having a wonderful conversation here today, and not once has anyone mentioned TCP/IP or VoIP, right? So, we're using apps based on protocols that we're not talking
Hmm.
About right now. At Disco, when we think about the sort of landscape of folks who we hope to serve, we want to make sure that we are able to interoperate with all of the apps and services that make our lives great, regardless of the underlying protocol. This means that we are working closely with our friends in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and even, whose work is based on proprietary identifiers that don't come from any kind of public ledger or public elliptic curve
Mm.
cryptography, but rather based on their own identifiers. And so at Disco, we are chain agnostic, we are web agnostic, we do not care where your data comes from, and we do not care where you take it. We just want to make it as easy as possible for you to own it and use it in a way that's going to work for you.
Yeah, well, that's very super exciting to hear. 'Cause definitely thinking about like identities and then kind of different footprints. One like kind of bottleneck we're seeing like in the past is like all these different like your contributions assets across different chains. It's the interoperability is a big challenge there. And also, I think now that we're talking about challenges, as we're closing off the Twitter space in a bit, Evan, you mentioned while building Disco, it's really like a three-sided marketplace from the get-go with how like verifiable credentials design in terms of its mechanism. So you got the issuers, the carriers, the kind of the holders of the verifiable credentials, and the verifiers. I'm curious from your experience building this out, what are some of the challenges like from these stakeholders, like, or how are they like accepting this concept in terms of adoption within the community? And same thing with Yisi, like the backend infrastructure could be a pretty abstract concept. Like, how are you? What kind of reactions are you getting in terms of onboarding of the developers onto the Next.ID protocol, and also like for users? Like, how are you addressing it?
So I feel very fortunate because at Disco, we get to be the bringers of great news to developers and individuals alike. We have introduced the idea of a new toy to Web3. So we are no longer limited to public financial data and fungible and non fungible tokens. Now we have another container for data that can interact with smart contracts and can help inform the way that we experience public ledgers. But this new form of data, the credentials we carry in our data backpacks, these credentials can be revoked, they can be set to expire, they can be private and known only to our keys, they can be shared selectively with only specific apps or services. They can remain encrypted. We can allow others to compute upon them in an encrypted form. We can do all kinds of these different sorts of interactions, and they can contain any kind of data, not just our public financial information. So when it comes to how we interface with the developer community, we are like Santa Claus bringing a new toy to all of the good builders and degens, and allowing them to take the tools they already have to do all sorts of new kinds of interactions. And so, it's like we've pulled up to their house and told them that the car that sits in their driveway is also an airplane, and it can fly, and it, makes chicken nuggets in the back seat. Like, it's pretty exciting to be able to let folks know that the tools they already have, what they're already familiar building with, is able, those tools are able to do all sorts of new things that they did not even know about, and that the information and guidance to make all that possible is freely available.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Hannah.
Oh yeah. Just quick follow up. So for like communities that are onboarding right now, like issuing VCs through Disco, what are the credentials that they're issuing? Like from their perspective.
Sure. So the number one credential that we have demand for, the number one reason that folks come running to the Disco, is for membership credentials. And
Mm-hmm.
that's been sort of the sort of most in demand first credential that most communities want to issue. But if you give a degen a credential, they're going to want another one once they realize what it can do. And so,
Yeah.
in addition to these membership credentials, we've also seen a lot of popularity for credentials like we call them snaps. They're kind of like kudos, and it's a way to recognize your teammates for doing particularly
Mm.
awesome things, helping you solve a problem, bringing immaculate vibes to a meeting, whatever those things, different things might be. So being able to capture and applaud different kinds of contributions and to specifically say why it is that you wanted to recognize a teammate. Whereas if you were to just give them tokens, they wouldn't really have a receipt of a job well done or a description for why they received that accolade.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Issa, go ahead.
Oh yeah. So talking about like like a developer, on developer's understanding of this new protocol. I guess like one major like problem we have faced is that we were trying to like because a lot of people in Web3 field like have been talking about, hey, your wallet address is your identity. But we're like addressing a new way of like defining like identities, because in our opinion, like your wallet address is not just or your identity is not just your wallet address, because you will have like different wallet addresses, or even like on the same chain, or like different wallet addresses on different chains. How can you just be just one wallet in one chain, and then all the others are not you? So we were trying to like address this new way of aggregating all your like all your identities that you want to expose to the public, the as the comprehensive you. So we were trying to like educate some other projects and then some other developers on this. Like intuitively, this is not designed in most of these like decentralized applications. So this like took some time for them to really accept this, because they really need to do a lot of like changes in their structures. But I guess in the long run, this is something that can benefit like more people in the Web3 world, because like in this way, people can just build up their like Web3 credit in a more transparent and more comprehensive way. Because like whatever you do in any chain or in anywhere, because like we also support like those Web2 platforms. So anywhere that you exist in the cyberspace, you can just build up your credit there. So this is something that's different, but it took time for developers to understand. This is one thing. So Hannah, do you want to like ask questions on that, or?
It's really like it's pretty casual and free flow. We want this to be more of a conversation, less of a just like a strict Q&A. But yeah, I think in terms of the bottlenecks that you shared, like helping developers and also like end users like realize what are the possibilities, like kind of enlarging their imagination of how you can use Disco, Next.ID, or other type of new tools that are optimizing or like building upon the existing tech stack we have in Web3 to enable like new user experiences, enhance data security, privacy. That's like kind of the eventual like kind of the education that we need to evangelize. We need to spread the word out. Through these Twitter spaces and beyond. I know we're like closer to time. I think my last question is in terms of, protecting users like privacy and then kind of like storing a lot of these data if there's like new initiatives or like how you're thinking about that in relation to the product you're building or in the broader space. Like how can we ensure that like we can onboard more users safely and happily to Web3, while not compromising on their asset security, given just like a lot of the ebbs and flows we see in the industry in the past year. Yeah. Do Yisi and Evin, do you want to share on that note?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, in short, we need to build for people, not protocols. We need to design for human beings in the places where they already hang out and ensure that when we put buttons in front of them, they make sense based on the experiences that they have had before. So, ensuring that we are curating experiences for human coordination, because that's what we're doing here, right? Building human coordination tools, as opposed to prioritizing things that we can do with protocols, but that don't necessarily fit into the lives of the human beings that we are working to serve. We think that it is critical as we move forward together to focus on enabling use cases for everybody, not just those who have really big bags, good alpha, and existing token holdings.
Mm-hmm.
So, want to welcome everybody to join us at the Disco. If you're interested in checking out our work, You can always visit us at Disco.xyz. If you want to join our private beta, please fill out the little form on our pinned tweet at Disco.xyz. If you have questions anytime, feel free to DM me, and we will see you all in the metaverse.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I really like the term that you're using. It's like you're building like a product for human beings, not just for like developers like us or like me. Well, I guess we are also sharing the same kind of energy because like we're trying to understand what is best for users. We're like end users because we don't really want to serve those like advanced users because they probably don't really need our help. So our target users are always like end users, like everybody out there, like my mom. So like one of my like goals like of this project is that one day if it's gonna be great if my mom can be one of the users out there. So we've been thinking about like how users can better use our project and then our product. Like so, I guess like Hannah mentioned like the storage because for Disco's like data packback, users probably need some space for storing their like data, like for storing all of these like like verifiable credentials or something like that. So I guess like we also have the same kind of like demand for this because like in our protocol users are we help users define their like identity, but that's not enough because like people will definitely just like generate data. So we were kind of like thinking about, hey, once we help users define the identity, where should they store the data? For now, like a lot of users are storing their data on different like platforms. They store the data or they generate the data on Twitter. So the data is stored on Twitter. They if they like generate like data or transaction on Ethereum, like everything will be stored on Ethereum. But there's no like in general like space for users to really own like store or own their data. So this is one of the things we have been like working on, where and uh, we kind of have our own like solution, but I think like it's kind of like debatable because we really want users to have their own like space in the in the internet, which is like owning some like private like server or device. So we have been like talking about this like solution, but this is not ideal because like most of the users don't really want to or like have like a really heavy storage on the internet. So I'm kind of like curious how Evan or like Disco team think about where these data can be stored as a really lightweight solution to the users, to the end users.
So, and at Disco, we think that your data should be logically centralized around you and your control and physically decentralized wherever it makes sense to store. So, part of our thesis of decentralization is that your data should never get stuck to one underlying storage solution. Your data should never be bound to one place where you can't easily pick it up, carry it with you, and use it in other places. So for us, that means that public ledgers are suboptimal, and anywhere where your data might get trapped, where you won't be able to own and control it fully. So currently, your data backpack is stored, that data is stored encrypted against your keys on the Ceramic network, although we're excited to be integrating a plurality of data storage solutions, from physically centralized storage under the ownership and control of your keys to other decentralized storage solutions from our friends across the Web3 enabled ecosystem, from decentralized web notes from the TBD ecosystem to really looking forward to solutions like Kepler from Spruce ID. Back in the day, we also, sort of traditionally have used the hardware enclaves on our mobile devices to store credentials. So that's a feasible option as well. But we're just prioritizing storage solutions based on the ones for which we have demand, where integrating those additional storage solutions is going to add superpowers that our different communities will be able to rely upon. So we feel very grateful that there are so many thoughtful and hardworking teams contemplating what it means to own our data and to store it. And so we continue to be informed by and learn from those different teams as they explore different solutions for how data can be stashed away, retrieved, computed upon, and controlled by its subject.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's super exciting to hear. And also, I think building this space, what's really fun is we all like kind of collaborate and have different approaches and focus on like a different modules to start with, and as a way to, and then there are different solutions that can almost like Lego pieces come together, and then overall like kind of combine and create a more powerful tech stack that we can offer to more builders, and then eventually like more users to come to the space. So yeah, like it's been such a fun time, like talking to you, Evin and Yisi, on the DID and different use cases that we've seen.
Thank you so much for having us
Yeah,
today. And to
yeah,
your point about Lego pieces, just wanted to shout out a member of our audience here. Our buddy Rocco is here representing the Spruce ID team. So definitely want to
yay,
encourage all
yes,
those who are interested in open source tooling and programmatic issuance from awesome resources such as Spruce's DidKit to definitely check those out.
yes.
So we're very excited that we have such an awesome squad of folks from Mask to Spruce to Disco and back, all having the opportunity to collaborate with one another around these really awesome public open standards.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just a quick shout out. We will be hosting a 2-day IRL event at East Denver called Web3 Social House, and there will be a DID panel. So yeah, Evan and then friends from Spruce and Ceramic, we're all gonna be there in person, excited to chat more about this topic. Yeah, I know we're a little bit over time. Any last thoughts or questions from our audience? Um, Also, feel free to just leave your questions under the chat. We'll be able to, like respond to it over on Twitter, over text, and definitely I will make note of the people who ask questions and expect some fun drops of credentials and other giveaways. Any questions people want to ask right now? All right. I mean, if not, I think we can wrap up today's disco party. And excited to, yeah, chat more with you, Evan. See you in Denver, and same thing here. Yisi will see you in Denver. And for everyone who tuned in, thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and enjoy the rest of your day.
GM, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the metaverse.
Yeah. See you in the metaverse.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having us today. See you guys in Denver or in Metaverse.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
See you.